Federal investigators found search history on that yacht, and it does not match the story of a grieving husband. Here is what nobody led with. On April 4, 2026, at approximately 7:30 p.m., Brian Hooker and his wife Lynette left a waterfront bar in Hopetown, Abaco. One bartender watched them leave together. Relaxed, normal. That bartender may be the last person outside that marriage who saw Lynette Hooker alive. Brian says what happened next was an accident. He says their dinghy hit rough water on the way back to their sailboat, Soulmate. He says Lynette fell overboard holding the ignition key. He says the engine died. He says he drifted for hours in the darkness, helpless, unable to save her. But federal investigators say the yacht tells a different story. And before this video ends, you are going to understand exactly why Brian's own systems may have recorded the evidence that destroys his account. Stay with us, because we are going to walk you through every piece of evidence investigators reportedly reviewed. The weather records, the witness accounts, the Starlink logs, the battery data, and then we are going to show you what investigators found that Brian apparently never thought anyone would check. If you are following this case, share this video right now. Lynette Hooker is still missing. Her family deserves answers, and awareness is how answers start. You are watching Justice Over Everything. Uncover the truth. Demand justice. The Royal Bahamas Police Force launched a search. The U.S. Coast Guard joined. Aircraft swept the Sea of Abaco. They found nothing. No signal, no trace, no Lynette. So where did she go? Because while search crews were combing the water, investigators were quietly turning their attention back to the boat. And what they found there would change this case entirely. The first thing investigators tested was the weather. Brian described dangerous conditions, rough water, darkness, chaos. But meteorological records from the Sea of Abaco that night reportedly told a different story. Conditions were significantly calmer than his account suggested. That alone does not prove anything. But it opened the first crack. Then came the rain band. Weather data showed a localized band of rainfall moving through portions of the area during the exact window. Brian claimed he was adrift in an open dinghy. Here is what is strange about that. If Brian spent hours exposed on that water, in that rain, investigators expected his condition to show it. Questions reportedly emerged about whether his appearance when located was consistent with someone who had been out there that long. It is a small detail, but investigators do not ignore small details. Then came the witnesses. Residents near the anchorage, where Soulmate was moored that night, reported hearing a large, unusual splash. Not a routine boating sound, a significant one, the kind that stands out. And the timing investigators flagged immediately, because that splash was reportedly heard hours after Brian claimed he and Lynette had already left the area in the dinghy. Someone or something entered the water near Soulmate long after Brian's timeline said the boat should have been empty. Now investigators were holding three separate problems. Weather that didn't match, a rain exposure question Brian couldn't easily answer, and a witness account pointing to activity near the yacht at a time Brian's own story said was impossible. And this is where it gets complicated. Soulmate was equipped with Starlink satellite internet. Modern satellite routers do not just provide access, they log it. Every device connection, every timestamp, every digital footprint left behind. Investigators reportedly began pulling those logs, and the device activity they allegedly found during the hours Brian claimed he was stranded at sea did not match a vessel sitting dark and empty at anchor. What was connecting to that network? And who was aboard? Because investigators weren't just tracking logins. They were tracking power, and buried inside Soulmate's electrical system was a record nobody expected to find. Built from the same disaster that nearly ended the voyage months earlier. Months before Lynette disappeared, Soulmate took a direct lightning strike. It was catastrophic. Navigation systems destroyed. Communication equipment disabled. Electrical infrastructure compromised throughout the vessel. The kind of event that ends voyages permanently. Lynette stayed. She kept sailing. She kept posting from the deck of the same boat that had just been nearly destroyed beneath her feet. That detail should not matter, but it does, because the woman who survived that strike on that vessel vanished from it. Brian oversaw the repairs. New lithium battery systems were installed as part of the rebuild. Advanced monitoring technology, systems that quietly record every power draw, every activation, every electrical event aboard the vessel, hour after hour, whether anyone is watching or not. Investigators reportedly began calling it a digital black box. Here is what they allegedly found inside it. 5 things, in order. 1. During the hours Brian claimed to be stranded at sea, the yacht's electrical system registered activity, not background noise, documented events. 2. The freshwater pump activated repeatedly, sinks, faucets, possibly a shower. Each activation requires power. Each one was recorded. 3. Interior lighting drew power during the same window. Someone turned on lights aboard a boat its owner says was empty. 4. General appliance loads registered across the vessel. Equipment was being used, the kind of usage that only happens when someone is physically present and operating the boat. 5. The pattern of electrical activity across that entire window is consistent with a vessel being actively occupied, not with a yacht sitting silent and dark, while its owner fights to survive miles away in a disabled dinghy. Investigators compared those logs against Brian's stated timeline, minute by minute, and the battery records reportedly did not match his account at any critical point. Now you have the weather discrepancy, the rain exposure question, the witness splash, the Starlink device logs, and a battery system recording significant activity aboard a boat Brian says was empty. The picture is clear. The evidence points in one direction. You know what happened that night. Drop your theory below. Do you think the battery logs alone are enough? Or does the prosecution need more? But here is what the battery logs could not tell investigators. What Brian was doing on those systems, what he was searching for, and what he apparently believed would never be found. The battery logs showed the boat was active, but activity is not intent. A battery records power draws, not decisions. Investigators needed more, and according to reports, they found it. Because the digital records pulled from systems aboard Soulmate did not stop at connection logs and power spikes. Investigators reportedly recovered search history data. Searches conducted from devices connected to that vessel. Searches that, according to investigators, are not consistent with a man who had just lost his wife to a terrible accident at sea. Nobody covered this clearly enough. So let us be precise here. The nature of those searches, as reported, suggested to investigators that someone aboard Soulmate may have been researching contingencies, not grieving, not searching for rescue information, researching outcomes. Investigators believe those searches reflect awareness, not shock. Now return to Lynette for a moment. She survived a lightning strike on that boat. She rebuilt her life aboard Soulmate. She trusted the man who installed every system on that vessel, the man whose own upgrades may now be the most important evidence in the case against him. There is more. Prior to this investigation, Brian Hooker reportedly faced separate allegations connected to GPS tracking and location monitoring technology from previous employment. Investigators found that relevant because the central question of this entire case had always been location. Where was Brian? His own history with tracking systems made that question more pointed. Brian eventually left the Bahamas and returned to the United States, while the federal investigation remained active. Investigators noted this. Subscribe to Justice Over Everything right now. We are following every development in this case as it breaks. Uncover the truth. Demand justice. Would you have left the Bahamas while the investigation was still open? Tell me below. The battery logs, the search history, the weather, the witnesses, the prior allegations. Investigators had built a case from the inside out, using Brian's own systems, his own devices, his own history. But there is one thing all of it still cannot answer. Lynette Hooker was not a case file. She was a woman who built a life on the water. She stayed on a boat that lightning nearly destroyed because she believed in that life. She kept posting, kept exercising on deck, kept showing up until she didn't. The Royal Bahamas Police Force searched. The U.S. Coast Guard searched. Aircraft swept the Sea of Abaco. Crews covered miles of open water. They found no confirmed sightings, no emergency signals, no trace of her anywhere. At the time of this recording, there has been no definitive court resolution in this case. The federal investigation is ongoing, and Lynette Hooker has never been found. The battery system Brian installed to repair what lightning destroyed may be the system that preserves what really happened to her. The upgrade meant to save the voyage may be what finally delivers justice for the woman who trusted that boat with her life. There is a grand jury process quietly developing around this case. When charges move, if they move, we will be here. Do you think investigators have enough to act, or are they still building? Tell us below. Share this video, not for the views, for Lynette. If someone knows something, awareness is how answers start. Justice over everything. Uncover the truth. Demand justice. The disappearance of Lynette Hooker, the federal investigation into Brian Hooker, and the battery evidence aboard Soulmate remain unresolved, but they will not be forgotten.